When we talk about daring to be different, what we're really talking about is the most fundamental human challenge, the call to live as ourselves, not as a copy of someone else, not as an echo of society's demands, but as an original. Carl Jung, one of the great voices in psychology, devoted much of his life to explaining what that truly means. And he gave us a word for it: individuation. Now, that might sound like an abstract concept, but at its heart, individuation is simple. It is the process of becoming who you are meant to be, in your fullest, truest sense. From the time we're children, we're shaped by expectations. Parents want us to behave a certain way. Schools grade us on how well we conform to standards. Friends nudge us into styles and habits that make us feel accepted. Society whispers constantly, fit in, stay in line, don't stand out too much. And so, piece by piece, we put on layers of masks. We put on masks to please, to belong, to be praised. But Jung would say that beneath all those layers, there is something else, something uniquely ours. The task of life, the daring act of life, is to take off those masks, one by one, and find the face beneath. And that, my friends, is not easy. Because when you begin to strip away the masks, you realize how much of your identity has been borrowed. You realize that so much of who you thought you were was actually an imitation of what others needed you to be. To dare to be different means to stand in that space of unmasking and say, I will not be a copy. I will not shrink myself down into what is comfortable for others. I will live out the truth of who I am, even if that truth sets me apart. Individuation is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's not about being different just to prove a point. It is about authenticity. It is about living in alignment with your own soul. And when you begin to live that way, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing the approval of the crowd. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You stop living on borrowed definitions of success. You begin to write your own story, in your own voice, with your own ink. Now, think about this in your own life. How many decisions have you made because they were expected, not because they were true? How many times have you walked into a room and felt the pressure to adjust yourself, your tone, your opinions, even your posture, because you feared that your real self might not be welcome there? Jung would say that every one of those moments is a call to individuation. Every time you feel the tension between what you know inside and what you are asked to perform outside, you are standing at the threshold of a choice. Do you remain a mask, or do you reveal a little more of who you really are? And here is the paradox: society tells us conformity will keep us safe, but in reality, conformity slowly suffocates the soul. Safety without authenticity is not safety at all, it's a prison. The individuals who dare to step out of that prison, who dare to live by their own design, are the ones who expand what's possible for all of us. Think about history. Every great innovator, every artist, every reformer, every leader who shifted the course of humanity did so because they dared to break away from the collective and stand in their own truth. Jung was pointing us toward that same courage in our own personal lives. But here's the deeper truth: becoming authentic is not simply about choosing your dreams and following your passion. That sounds beautiful, but it's only part of the work. The deeper work comes when you begin to encounter the parts of yourself you've tried to hide. Jung called this the shadow. And this, my friends, is where the second great challenge of daring to be different begins. We all carry a shadow. The shadow is made up of everything about ourselves we'd rather not face. The anger we suppress. The envy we deny. The fears we keep locked away. The desires we consider unacceptable. These are the parts of ourselves we push down, because somewhere along the way we were told, don't show that, don't be that, don't admit that. We learn to exile parts of our humanity, so that we can fit into the picture others expect of us. But here's the secret Jung discovered: the shadow does not disappear. It waits. It waits in the unconscious, and it will surface whether you want it to or not. If you ignore it, it will come out sideways, in your relationships, in your anxieties, in the moments when you find yourself acting in ways you can't even explain. The shadow, unacknowledged, rules us. To dare to be different is to turn toward the shadow with courage. It is to stop running from those disowned parts of ourselves and instead say, I see you. I hear you. And I will not be ashamed of you. Integration does not mean indulging every impulse. It means understanding them, owning them, and transforming them into something conscious, something creative. I want you to imagine this: you spend your life carrying a suitcase full of things you think are too ugly, too heavy, too dangerous to unpack. But that suitcase is still with you, whether you look at it or not. It weighs you down. It slows your walk. Jung invites us to stop dragging the suitcase behind us and finally open it. Because when we do, we discover that what's inside is not just darkness. Inside are also gifts, gifts that were buried because they didn't fit the mold. Your shadow holds the roots of your power. Your shadow holds your creativity, your passion, your individuality. When you face it, you free it. So many people spend their lives terrified of what others will think if they show their whole selves. But here is the irony: the very thing you are most afraid to reveal is often the very thing the world most needs from you. Your honesty, your rawness, your vulnerability, that is what breaks through the numbness of conformity. That is what connects. That is what heals. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Think about that. We don't grow by pretending everything is fine, or by polishing up an image of perfection. We grow by acknowledging the messy, complicated, contradictory parts of ourselves and bringing them into the light of awareness. That is what it means to dare to be different, not just from others, but from the smaller version of yourself that hides behind denial. And yes, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to admit your envy. It is uncomfortable to recognize your anger. It is uncomfortable to face your fear of rejection or your hunger for control. But that discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It is a sign you are alive. It is a sign you are daring. And on the other side of that discomfort is liberation. Because once you face your shadow, no one can use it against you. Once you own your truth, no one can manipulate your shame. Once you dare to be whole, you are free. So let us bring these two truths together. To dare to be different is to walk the path of individuation, discovering and honoring the authentic self beneath the masks. And to dare to be different is also to face the shadow, to stop running from the parts of yourself you fear, and instead claim them as part of your wholeness. This journey is not a straight line. You will stumble. You will question yourself. You will feel the pull of the crowd telling you to shrink back. But if you keep walking, if you keep choosing authenticity over approval, if you keep choosing wholeness over image, then step by step you will become the person you were always meant to be. And here is the final thought I want to leave with you: life is not asking you to be perfect. Life is asking you to be real. The world does not need another copy, another mask, another hollow performance. The world needs you, the unrepeatable, unapologetic, authentic you. Jung's wisdom reminds us that the greatest act of courage is not conquering mountains or winning applause. The greatest act of courage is daring to be yourself, fully and completely. So tonight, I invite you, dare to take off the mask. Dare to open the suitcase. Dare to look at the parts of yourself you've hidden, and dare to step into the light with all of it. Your strength and your shadow, your beauty and your flaws. Because when you do, you don't just set yourself free. You give permission for others to do the same. And that, my friends, is how one soul, daring to be different, can change the world. Dare to be different, not by rejecting the world, but by embracing the fullness of who you are. Because your authenticity is your power, and your wholeness is your gift. And when you live that truth, you give the world something it has never seen before: you. We've spoken about the power of individuation, about daring to live beneath the masks, and about the courage it takes to face the shadow. But there is another challenge that confronts us every single day. It is the pressure of the collective. The pressure to belong. The pressure to think as others think, to want what others want, to move with the current even when your soul longs to swim upstream. Now let me be clear, there is nothing wrong with community, with togetherness, with shared values. In fact, connection is one of the most essential parts of being human. But there is a fine line between connection and conformity. There is a line between belonging and erasure. And too often, we cross that line without even realizing it. From the moment you wake up in the morning, the collective is speaking to you. It speaks through the images you see, through the messages in your feeds, through the subtle cues in your environment about what is admired, what is acceptable, what is rewarded. It tells you how you should look, how you should love, how you should succeed. And the collective has power. It has the power to make us question ourselves, to shrink back from our originality, to mute our own inner voice. Jung warned about this. He said that the greatest threat to the individual is absorption into the collective. Not because the collective is evil, but because it is seductive. It offers comfort. It offers the illusion of safety. When everyone else is walking one way, it feels risky to walk another. It feels lonely. It feels exposed. But here's the truth, every time you silence your inner calling to satisfy the collective, you betray yourself a little more. And after years of that, you don't even realize you've built a life that doesn't belong to you. You've built a life that belongs to the crowd. Think about this, how many choices have you made in your life because that's just what people do? Maybe it was the career path that looked respectable. Maybe it was the relationship that everyone said made sense. Maybe it was staying silent when you wanted to speak, because you feared the consequences of standing out. These are the subtle ways the collective shapes us. And yet, when you look deeper, you may realize that those choices did not come from your deepest self, they came from fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being different. Now, here's the paradox, the same society that pressures us to conform also celebrates those who break free. We admire the artist who paints outside the lines, the innovator who sees what no one else could see, the leader who takes a stand that no one else dared to take. But we forget that those people were once just like us, standing in the tension between the collective voice and their own. The only difference is that they listened to their inner calling instead of silencing it. That inner calling is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it comes as a restlessness, a sense that what you're doing doesn't quite fit. Sometimes it comes as a dream, an idea, a longing that keeps resurfacing even when you try to dismiss it. And the question is, will you listen? Will you honor it, even if it sets you apart? To dare to be different means to cultivate the courage to trust that inner calling. Because at the end of the day, the collective cannot tell you who you are. The collective cannot tell you why you are here. That answer can only be found within, in the quiet truth of your own soul. And here's where Jung's wisdom becomes so powerful. He believed that every individual carries within them a unique destiny, a potential that is theirs alone to realize. When you surrender to the collective, you forfeit that destiny. But when you dare to listen inward, even when it defies the crowd, you step into the life that was always meant for you. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but if I follow my own path, will I lose love? Will I lose acceptance? Will I end up alone? And that fear is real. But let me share something with you, the love you lose by being authentic is not love at all. It is conditional approval, and it is built on the mask you wear. The love that lasts, the love that nourishes, is the love that meets you in your truth. And when you live in alignment with your calling, you not only draw in that kind of love, you give others permission to love themselves as well. So I ask you, whose voice are you listening to? The collective, with its endless demands to conform? Or your inner calling, with its quiet insistence on authenticity? To dare to be different is to make a choice, again and again, to live from the inside out, not the outside in. And this brings us to the final truth I want to share with you tonight. A truth that Jung emphasized again and again: the goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. Let me say that again, because it's easy to miss. The goal is not perfection. The goal is wholeness. We live in a world obsessed with perfection. Perfect images. Perfect resumes. Perfect families. Perfect performances. And yet, behind all of that, there is so much quiet suffering. Because perfection is an illusion. Perfection is the mask we show to the world to prove we are worthy of love. But wholeness, that is something entirely different. Wholeness is not about polishing yourself into flawlessness. It is about embracing every part of yourself, the light and the dark, the strengths and the wounds, the triumphs and the failures. Wholeness is what happens when you stop trying to amputate the parts of yourself that don't fit society's definition of good enough, and instead welcome them back home. When you live for approval, you will always feel fragmented, because you are living according to someone else's script. But when you choose wholeness, you step into a kind of freedom that no approval can give you. Because you are no longer performing for the crowd. You are living for the truth of your own being. And here is the gift of wholeness: when you embrace yourself fully, you create a space where others feel safe to do the same. Your wholeness becomes a mirror for theirs. Your courage becomes an invitation for their courage. That is how transformation ripples outward, not by striving to be perfect, but by daring to be real. I want you to think about this in your own life. Where are you chasing perfection? Where are you exhausting yourself trying to earn approval, trying to meet expectations that leave you empty? And what would it look like, instead, to choose wholeness? To say, I am enough, not because I am flawless, but because I am whole. I am worthy, not because I fit the mold, but because I am me. That, my friends, is the essence of daring to be different. Not just stepping away from the collective voice, but stepping into the wholeness of your own being. Not just living for approval, but living for truth. And so, as we close this journey together, I want to leave you with this: the world is full of copies. Full of masks. Full of people bending themselves into shapes that please others but betray themselves. But you have another choice. You can dare to live authentically. You can dare to listen to your inner calling. You can dare to embrace your wholeness. And when you do, you won't just change your own life. You will change the lives of those around you. Because nothing is more powerful, nothing is more contagious, than a soul that is free. So tonight, let me ask you, what mask will you take off? What shadow will you face? What inner calling will you honor? What wholeness will you embrace? Because in the end, daring to be different is not about standing against the world, it is about standing with yourself. And when you stand with yourself fully, the world cannot help but be changed by your presence. Dare to be different, not for the sake of defiance, but for the sake of truth. Because your wholeness is your greatest gift, and when you live it boldly, you light the way for others to do the same.